1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. A rainy day here in the Midlands. We're expecting some regional baseball tomorrow, and I want to welcome into the program from Baseball America, Mr. Joe Healy. Joe, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, best week of the year as far as I'm concerned. Regionals coming up. There's no better time to be a college baseball fan, and you mentioned it raining there. It's raining here, too, in the Triangle area in North Carolina, and I always say if it's raining pretty hard outside, it must be regional week. That's how you can tell.
I tell you what, man, we got to talk about that. I mean, rain may wreak havoc on some of these regional sites.
Oh, for sure. You know, and it's hey, okay, if we throw a guy out there and he gives us 4 innings and the rain starts pouring, do we have like a reliever that we can throw if we have a 2-hour delay, or if we have to pick up the game tomorrow? Do we have a reliever that can give us 4 or 5 innings instead of having to bring a different starter back into that game? So that can play a role a little bit. But one of the things that you see every year that plays a bigger role from the standpoint of pitching is, what do these 1 seeds do with their aces? Because if you're a host team, you know, do you throw your ace against the 4 seed? Or do you risk it and throw your number 2 or number 3 guy against the 4 seed so you can save your ace for that winner's bracket game on Saturday, most likely against the number 2 seed? And that's another thing that's changed over the years. It used to be you just throw your ace and you were done with it. More and more you see coaches taking the standpoint of, look, you know, we're not here to win one game. We're here to win this regional. And the best way to win a regional is to set up our ace to throw in the most important game. And the most important single game in a regional is that winner's bracket game on Saturday night where the winner goes to the regional final. And so setting yourself up to be in the best position for that game is the most important thing.
Well, of course, Joe Healy from Baseball America joining us here. When we step back and look at it, let's talk about the Columbia Regional for a moment here. You know, South Carolina, the only team that's hosting that is a 2 seed. Projections have the Gamecocks moving on. It depends on where you look, obviously, but Old Dominion is definitely worthy of that number 1 seed. I mean, they lead the country in homers.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a deserving 1 seed. The fact that they're seeded 11th also tells you that this isn't just a case of, we think Old Dominion's pretty good. And the reason why Old Dominion is not hosting is because they did not bid to host. Their facility is not quite up to hosting quality, if you will. And so they did not bid to host, or at least that's my assumption, is that it's because the facility is not quite up to snuff. So they didn't bid to host, so it has to go somewhere else. But the fact that they're seated 11th and not 15th or 16th suggests that the committee really liked this team. They're going to be a tough matchup. You know, South Carolina has the advantage of playing at home. I also think South Carolina is playing a lot better baseball now than when you and I talked after that, around the time of the Arkansas series when I was in town. They are playing a better brand of baseball, so I like their chances from that standpoint, but they got a tough regional. You mentioned Old Dominion. You know, they hit a ton of home runs, and Founders Park can be a hitter's park on the right day. And so that's kind of a tough matchup there. Old Dominion's also a really veteran team. That team is old. And so they're not really going to be flustered by a whole lot. And then as a 3 seed, you have Virginia, which is one of the hottest teams in the country. I mean, it's a team that was ranked in the top 5 coming into the season. They didn't have a great regular season. They kind of got their stuff together at just the right time, and now they're into a regional. And I think they could be pretty dangerous. So, you know, South Carolina getting to play at home is a good advantage, but they certainly did not catch any breaks with the teams they drew in that regional.
Let's talk about some of the other teams that are out there. You know, LSU kind of gets a swan song for their coach. But they're having to go across the country. Kind of a tough out there for the Tigers.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Paul Maneri is going to get, one last shot to play in a regional. And I think the team probably, even if there were some people that thought, well, maybe they got in because the committee wants to give Pulmonary one more ride. And like, maybe that plays a small role, but also that kind of postseason resume that they had is kind of a postseason resume. You see SEC teams get in with that kind of similar resume every year. So I wasn't shocked by that, but it is tough. And you're going to have to go across the country. And LSU a couple of years ago got sent out west. So they're not totally unfamiliar with having to hit the road a long way for regionals. So they go out to Oregon, and Oregon's a little bit of a tough customer. And, it's a pitcher's ballpark. And
Oops. We lost our connection there to Joe. The weather obviously having some issues there. We'll work to get him back on the phone here as we roll along here on the rundown right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Of course, if you'd like to join the program, we would love to have you. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call. And, Joe Healy was bringing us some good information there about LSU as his connection dropped. And I'm texting him now. It's the live radio portion of this is always fun because, his phone just dropped out on us there. But, we're going to talk a little bit about the SEC and how I think it's a conservative number to have 4 teams to join to be into the set where they can go to Omaha. So we'll hopefully get Joe back here in a second as we roll along here on the rundown. David asking about Georgia's shot at hosting a regional. That's funny. But yeah, hopefully Joe Healy will join us in a moment. I tell you what, why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we'll have more for you here on the rundown, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400.
At Platinum West, the entertainment doesn't stop at 11 p.m. The fun is just beginning. The ladies at Platinum West have missed you, and they're ready to show you just how much. One dance at a time. Champagne rooms for the ultimate VIP experience. Full kitchen menu, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. Happy hour every day, 4 to 8 p.m. Now serving alcohol till close. Open Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 4 a.m. Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 6 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. on Sundays. Free entry with military ID. Come experience 5-star entertainment the Platinum way. Don't keep the ladies waiting. Off Highway 321 on Old Dunbar Road.
Attention all men. Have Viagra and Cialis let you down? Think your best days are behind you? Think again. The professionals and discreet medical staff from Peak Performance for Men can help, regardless of age or medical history. Just the newest available proven technology using focused linear compression therapy. Our FDA-cleared medical device regenerates blood vessels and tissues with short in-office sessions with no pain, no needles, no surgery, and no medications. Over 80% of men who receive our treatment experience long-term improvement in male performance, including men with diabetes and prostate issues. Schedule your appointment today at our clinic in Columbia. Call 803-302-8181 or visit peakperformanceformen.com. Treat the cause, not the symptoms, for proven lasting results. 803-302-8181. That's 803-302-8181. Stand up to ED for good. Peak Performance for Men is CDC compliant to protect you and our staff.
Introducing the Lowe's List. While there's innovation in every aisle, these are some of our experts' top picks for 2021. Customize any load with the Whirlpool 2-in-1 washer. Control your home with a touch, thanks to Samsung connected appliances. Repel the rain with...
My bad on that, guys. No, it's the phones are just shot because of the weather. So anyway, tough, man. It sucks. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. As we roll along here, and we trying to get in touch with Joe Healy from Baseball America, as he was joining us just a moment ago, and we had issues with our phones, and that's fine, but it's just it's a mess with the weather. And I tell you what, it looks like we can get things moving back here now, and hopefully Joe will call us back here in just a second, and we can get him on the air with us, because he was breaking down the stuff with LSU and the possibility that how they're going to go out with their coach, and then things just kind of went silly there. I don't know why it's saying Will Healy is Joe Healy over there. Sorry about that on the in the chat there. Anyway, I think that the regionals coming up this week are going to be interesting, but let's head out to the phones, and we should be able to go now. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, it's Joe.
Okay, Joe joining us back here as our phones broke down there for just a minute. Joe, thanks for joining us. We were talking a little bit about LSU and their chances out there when you dropped off. Tough matchup for them going across the country, but they kind of do get that swan song treatment having to head out west.
Yeah, no doubt. Live radio, Rob. Anything can happen, right?
Exactly.
Including dropping off. Yeah, a tough road trip for LSU, certainly, going out west. I mean, that's a long trip there. And they made it a couple of years ago. I think they played in Oregon State's regional, I want to say, a couple of years ago. They get another shot. Paul Maneri getting his final run to the postseason, so that's cool for him. And some people thought that might have been why they got in, and maybe it's a small part of it, but really I think that's a team that did just enough in SEC play to deserve an at-large bid, so they're in. It's a pitcher's park out there, so they're going to have to pitch well to win. They're not going to be able to win 11-10 slugfest, and I don't know that they're really equipped to do that anyway. But, Gonzaga and Oregon both pitch pretty well, and that's, like I said, that's a pitcher's park. So if LSU is going to get through that regional and challenge to get to a super regional, it's going to have to match those teams pitch for pitch, and it'll be a little bit of a tough task.
Looking at all of the SEC teams that are there, I think it's conservative on my end to think that maybe 4 of them have a shot to advance to Omaha. But I mean, when you look at even like a team like South Carolina going 16-14 in conference play, USC Sumter coach Tim Medlin was on with us yesterday and said, if you go 500 in the SEC, that puts you light years ahead of a lot of other teams.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you see that every year. It seems like every year there's an SEC team in Omaha that didn't exactly blow the doors off in the regular season. I think of Auburn a couple of years ago. Auburn gets to Omaha, and they were on the bubble coming into the postseason, and they just happened to get hot and play their best baseball at the right time of year. And you're right. I mean, I talk to coaches all the time that say, look, a regional, like there's added pressure in regionals, and there's all kinds of different things that go into winning in a regional. It's, you might have to play 4 or 5 games to get through a regional, but regionals are not necessarily any tougher than SEC weekends or the SEC tournament, if you're going to play deep into the week at the SEC tournament. So these teams are pretty battle tested. They're not going to see anything in a regional that they haven't seen all season. And so those teams kind of come in with a little bit of an advantage. But like I said, there's a little something about regional. There's a little bit of pressure. It's the win or go home. It's all of that kind of stuff that plays into it. And so at the same time, I'm with you. I think we could see 4 SEC teams, for example, in Omaha, but there are probably going to be a couple that think they should go to Omaha that aren't going to get there just because, a bad hop here or there, or the pressure gets to them and they play a little bit tight and they don't end up making it. And that's just baseball for you.
Blake asking online if you think it's possible that 6 teams out of 8 from the SEC could head to Omaha.
I mean, I don't necessarily see why not. Some of the math doesn't necessarily work out there, though. So for example, Arkansas is regional, the Fayetteville regional is across in the Ruston regional, and Alabama is in the Ruston regional. So if Alabama were to win that regional, only one of those 2 teams could advance to a regional. Same thing in Eugene. The Eugene regional is across from the Knoxville regional. So if LSU and Tennessee win, that one of those 2 teams will be knocked out. So from a talent standpoint, there's no question we could see 6 Omaha teams from the SEC. But without sitting here and doing the math and going through it team by team, I don't know that it's necessarily possible from a logistics standpoint, because I think too many SEC teams might have to knock each other out to get to Omaha. So I don't know if that math works, but from a talent standpoint, I mean, Blake's estimation is correct. I mean, if we were just talking about putting the best teams in Omaha, the SEC clearly established itself. It's always the best conference. This year, it was not even a question what the best conference was, and that was the SEC. So from a talent standpoint, yeah, I mean, he's onto something there. This could be the type of year where we see a lot of SEC in the Omaha field.
Last night, my buddy David asked about potential upset teams. And I think back to Stony Brook a couple years ago where nobody really knew about Stony Brook, but then you look at Stony Brook and their roster, and it's like, whoa, they had a bunch of guys that were just really, really solid. Is there a team that that you look at and you may not know too much about them, but could possibly make some noise this weekend?
One of them is in the Knoxville Regional. That's Wright State. They dominated their league, and they play in the Horizon League, which is not a good baseball league, but they lost one series in the Horizon League this year. And outside of that one series where they lost 3 games, they only lost one other conference game this year. They're the best offense in college baseball. And yes, that's because they played poor competition most of the time. But they've got a potential future big leaguer in their lineup named Tyler Black, who plays second base, and he hits for average, he hits for power, he gets on base, he steals bases. But that entire lineup can really mash. They like to make things happen on the bases. Their pitching is pretty deep. You know, it's not SEC level pitching, but the pitching is pretty deep. So I think they're a team that could go to a regional final and be pretty competitive. And, you know, obviously it's lofty praise to compare them to Stony Brook, but that's the team that I look at as a 4 seed. And they're in a tough regional, by the way. You know, Tennessee, obviously, but Duke won the ACC tournament. You know, Liberty went 19-2 in their conference this year. So that's a really, really tough regional, but they're one that stands out to me. And one other that I'll throw at you quickly is McNeese State in the Southland. That's another really, really old team. They had a tough year. They've had 2 hurricanes come through Lake Charles last year. They had a bad ice storm earlier this year. They had some flooding a few weeks ago. They had to completely rebuild their stadium basically after one of those hurricanes. Their head coach got COVID at some point. Their regular season wasn't very good, but they're playing their best baseball right now. And that's a team full of seniors that wants to make good on its promise. So, and I think they're in a winnable regional at TCU. TCU's looked a little vulnerable this year at times. And Oregon State and Dallas Baptist are good teams, but they are flawed teams. And so that's another one to watch. But so Wright State and McNeese State would be the 2 that stand out to me most.
When you step back, though, and you look at it, what do you think is the toughest regional? I mean, I think the Columbia Regional is tough with Old Dominion, and you mentioned Virginia and, of course, South Carolina. But, you know, from top to bottom, which regional do you think is the absolute toughest?
I think I might go Tucson. That one's a little bit more off the radar. And I think Columbia has a claim to it. I also think Knoxville has a claim to it. But I've been looking at Tucson time and time again here from this standpoint. Like, Arizona is a legit team. Pac-12 champions, one of the best offenses in college baseball. Pitching has gotten better as the season's gone on. You have an Oklahoma State team that got to the Big 12 tournament final. You know, if the season was 2 weeks longer, Oklahoma State might be hosting. That's how good they were the last few weeks of the season. That's a team that's playing better right now. UC Santa Barbara was a team we had like in the preseason top 20, I want to say. If they weren't in the top 20, they were certainly in the top 25. They've got some future big leaguers on the mound, perhaps, and a pretty good young offense. So I like that team. And the 4 seed is Grand Canyon. And Grand Canyon not only was a very good team out of the WAC, they went 39-19 or something like that. They're also really familiar with the teams in this regional. They play Arizona every year in midweeks. They played a series against Oklahoma State each of the last 2 years. And 2 years ago, they beat Oklahoma State in a series. So I think that's a regional where, you know, maybe there are others that are more talented team by team, but I think the familiarity of all those teams together is going to make that one a really, really competitive one. I'd still pick Arizona to win that regional, but I would believe you if you told me any of those 4 teams came out on top.
Now, you mentioned that the teams you liked as far as an upset goes. Which big seed do you think may have the potential to be an early exit?
Well, it's a great question, you know, because you look at these on paper and it's always hard to kind of talk yourself into the favorites winning because they're favorites
right.
for a reason.
It's easy to pick chalk across the board, and you'll probably have a decent looking bracket after this week.
Right, exactly right. But I'm not going to cop out on you. I'll give you a real answer. So I'm looking at Stanford maybe. I like Stanford a lot as a team, but I think their 2 seed, UC Irvine, is really, really good. They're one of the few teams that has 4 legit starting pitchers that I think they feel comfortable throwing in games 1, 2, 3, or 4 in any order. So they've got that. Also, sometimes West Coast teams get stereotyped as teams that like to bunt and move runners over. And like, this team can actually mash. They play in a bunch of stadiums in the Big West that aren't hitter friendly, and they put up some pretty good offensive numbers. So I think that's a tough 2 seed. And by the way, the number 3 seed is Nevada, and I don't think Nevada wins that regional. But a lot of times what you see is, let's say a host ends up in the loser's bracket. they might be able to play a team that's just not talented enough to keep up with them, so they can kind of rest their good pitchers. They can get by without throwing their most talented guys. Nevada's offense is so good that if you end up having to play them at some point in the regional, you can't afford to just throw the back of your bullpen and hope you get through the game. Like, you have to throw your good pitchers against them. So that's the type of team that could be a trap if Stanford ends up in the losers bracket, which could open up the door for UC Irvine. So I don't think UC Irvine needs help to win this regional, but that's one that really stands out to me.
All right, tell us about a hidden player that we may not know about. I mean, I remember Michael Roth coming in and doing great stuff in the College World Series for the Gamecocks, and not a lot of people really knew who Michael Roth was, but, you know, there are players out there that you may not know much about that will shine this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, so I'll give you one in kind of on a major conference level. I'll give you another on like a mid-major level. So for East Carolina, they actually have two guys I would look at. Connor Norby is a second baseman for them that doesn't look the part. He's about 6 foot and less than 200 pounds. He's pretty thin, but the dude hits like 420. He's got power. He plays good defense. He's a spark plug on offense. They've also got a pitcher named Gavin Williams, who very quietly was perhaps the most dominant pitcher at the major conference level the second half of the season. He wasn't in the rotation to start the year because he was coming back from a little bit of a nagging injury in the preseason. But he's a dude that mostly sits like 95, 96 with his fastball, but he's been up over 100 miles an hour with his fastball when he was pitching out of the bullpen. That's a big-time arm that East Carolina's got. It's the type of arm that could really push you through to get through to Omaha. The other name I will give you is at Northeastern. Northeastern's a tricky 3 seed in that Fayetteville regional. They've got some real dudes on that team, but they have a hitter named Jared Dupree that has 21 home runs this year, and the dude is built like a tank. Like, he really looks the part. Big, strong kid, just mashes the ball. And that Northeastern team, again, I don't think anybody's beaten Arkansas in that regional, but Northeastern is better than most people are going to assume they are, and that offense completely runs around what Jared Dupree does.
Joe Healy joining us from Baseball America. Where will you be partaking your stuff as far? I mean, you're going to be on the road somewhere, right?
Actually, I'm not. I'm couch surfing this weekend. There's
That's
just so much
better.
going on.
That's
yeah,
even better.
I mean, in 2021, man, like with every regional being on some form of ESPN, whether it's on TV or on ESPN3, like there's so much you can watch at a time. And so I'm doing wall-to-wall coverage from first pitch to the last out of those West Coast night games and recapping it all for the site. We'll be throwing all kinds of content. I don't even know all the different types of content we're going to be throwing at you this weekend as regionals unfold, but we're going to have plenty of stuff for you to chew on at baseballamerica.com.
And of course, they can follow you on Twitter. And you were tweeting out stuff about conference championship games that I was like, man, he's following that. My goodness. But you guys do go wall to wall with everything at Baseball America. Tell folks where they can find you on Twitter and obviously read your great content.
Yeah, baseballamerica.com. Me and my colleague Teddy Cahill do the best we can to cover everything that is out there. We got to keep our heads on a swivel. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Healy BA.
All right, Joe. Hey, man, thanks for joining us, man. And as always, you're always welcome here in the studio.
I appreciate it, Rob. Thanks so much.
All right, there you go. Joe Healy from Baseball America joining us. Bringing up some interesting stuff there. He likes the Tucson Regional, thinks the Columbia Regional is tough as well. And talk a little bit about Virginia, which is the first matchup there for the Gamecocks. Brett Carey is going to be on the mound for South Carolina tomorrow. The guy that was in the bullpen, that was kind of the stopper, and now he's going to, they've kind of stretched him out a little bit and, got himself squared away to be the starter against Virginia. So it's going to be interesting. So tomorrow, of course, if the weather allows it to happen, man, it was a mess outside earlier. Hopefully some of this stuff will move out. Oof. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right. If you got questions about the regionals, we can get into that at 803-978-1832. Joe Healy joining us here to talk about that. And, the more and more I look at this regional, South Carolina getting to host is great, but man, would anybody be shocked if any one of the top 3 seeds, and no disrespect to Jacksonville, but they were 16 and 32 overall. They got hot at the right time and won their conference tournament. But, as he said, Virginia is a team that was picked in the top 20 beginning of the season. Didn't really have the season that they wanted. And Old Dominion comes in here and they lead the country in homers. Just great stuff there as far as the teams coming in here. And should be some great baseball. And I hope that South Carolina fans turn out, man. And I think a lot of people will. But it's going to be an interesting matchup. And Tom's right online. Columbia has the group of death. And, once again, either one of those three seeds could make an argument about, hey, we're the better team here. South Carolina's played the toughest schedule in the group. I'll admit that. But Old Dominion out there just hitting bombs. And then Virginia, they've had a tough season, but highly thought of going into the year. So we'll see what happens with that. Folks online talking about Georgia, and David says, I heard the Bulldogs are replacing Jacksonville in the regional. No, Jacksonville's in, Georgia's not. Yeah. So David throwing me off here a little bit. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the regional this weekend. And if you want to call up with your regional picks, we'd be happy to chat with you about that. And, I'm so interested in this regional that I've been looking at some of the others, and I think Arkansas is just too strong. I think they're going to whiz right through their regional, and I kind of like Vanderbilt in their regional as far as teams that I think that if I had to make a push for right now, is those teams would be the two that I would pick right off the bat. I'm a guy that likes the way that TCU plays, but their regional is pretty tough in my opinion. And then once you get out to the West Coast, man, I don't get to watch enough of those teams to really give you a whole of, I think this team can do this and do that, but it wouldn't surprise me if some of the one seeds, just by what Joe said, they played all these other teams that are lined up with them throughout the year. So a lot of familiarity there. Yeah, it's going to be some great baseball. All right, 803-978-1832. Other things we're going to get into today. Johnny Manziel, we haven't had to say that name in a while. He made some comments I'm going to play for you that I had to clean up a good bit. But he talks about how he got paid in college. Oof. Yeah. Some of these comments you'll want to hear here in just a moment. Some comments from Coach Mike Schiszewski, who is retiring, quote for his family. And when you hear that, it's like, but we got to, take him for his word there. The USFL is launching. They're relaunching in the spring 22 with at least 8 teams. We'll get into that later on. Also, your best bets tonight for the NBA playoffs, where you, ladies and gentlemen, as you drive around right now, you get to support America's team. That would be the Phoenix Suns. Yes, you may not know they're America's team, but I'm telling you, as far as you can hear my voice, America's team is the Phoenix Suns. Just saying. They have a chance tonight to knock off the evil Goliath, the Los Angeles Lakers, the team that was put together with superstars, and they all sat around playing pickup one day and said, you know what, I'd like to play with you. And, I'd like to play with you. They put that team together, and what happened? Yeah, so we'll get into that in just a little bit too. More of the rundown when we come back. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I like the Hawks, man. I think Trae Young is outstanding. Just saying. David's hilarious about the UGA thing. Killing me, David. I got to get some more water. I'll be right back. I call him the flop.
This is Rob Parker. Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network.
Presented by NHTSA.
Hurricanes goalie Alex Nedeljkovic emerged from the taxi squad to become their playoff workhorse. He was named the Calder Trophy finalist as the top rookie today. Jeremy Tim will play safety.
Yeah, you're right about that. He is a complete crybaby. That's why the Phoenix Suns are America's team. The team that doesn't have a bunch of crybabies. Just saying.
There's no such thing as a good excuse for not buckling up. Law enforcement are writing tickets, so why take the risk? Do the smart thing and start buckling up every trip, day or night. Click it.
Wait till you guys hear this Johnny Manziel comment. It's hilarious.
Sports Radio, Fox Attitude. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400.
Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. This story came out about Johnny Manziel today, who, everybody remembers Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M, and I tell you what, there are Alabama fans that still despise him for for some of the stuff he did. I mean, he was a guy that was that was all over the place, was exciting, but battled alcohol and drugs and everything else, and was just kind of all over the place. But he talks about in an interview he did with the Bustin' with the Boys podcast, he claims he was paid a good bit, not a good bit, but a decent amount to sign 10,000 autographs. Here's the comments from Johnny Manziel, and the first time we've talked about him in years here, but interesting stuff here. Obviously, this is very cleaned up. We'll hear some breaks in it because, I can't play the cuss words, but yeah, from the Bustin' with the Boys podcast, some comments from Johnny Manziel, the Heisman Trophy winner.
This guy comes up behind me. He's like, yo, how would you want to make $3,000? I'll turn around. I got like $65 in my bank account. I'm waiting on that, beginning of the month, January stipend check. So I take this guy's number down. We're doing it all sneaky. We don't want to get caught. We're trying to learn from everybody else that got caught.
Yeah.
And, may or may not have gone back to this guy's condo and signed probably 10,000 pieces.
He got it out of here.
He gave me $3,000. I'm signing these autographs, and this other guy was like bringing the pictures over. He's like, yo, you're getting ripped off. Here's this guy's number. Hit him up. He'll give you $30,000. And I'm like, so this guy pretty much is like, all right, go to this room at the Fountain Blue. All the stuff will be in there laid out. And when you're done, just send me a picture of all of it. I'll give you the code of the safe. The money will be in there. I got to make a somewhat of a decent living in college. And we went 9-4 the next year.
30,000 four times a year.
We went 9-4 the next year. So if the NCAA wants to take a 9-4 season away in my Chick-fil-A bowl against Duke.
What if the NCAA said, hey, we're taking you're a Heisman?
I never took $1 until after I won the Heisman. And I think my statute of limitations are up.
So there's Johnny Manziel, doing his thing on the Bustin' with the Boys podcast. The crazy thing is, though, if you really stop and think about it, if you are a guy that is like Manziel, I mean, Manziel won the Heisman Trophy, went back to school. I mean, you go from all of that, it makes you wonder how things are going with guys signing autographs. And if you're in college and this guy says, look, you come and sign X amount of stuff, all you got to do is walk into this hotel room, like this happened with him here. He said, there's a safe in there. You sign everything. You send me pictures. I give you the code to the safe. You walk out with your money. We're talking $30,000 as a college student in cash for 8 hours worth of work, sitting around signing your name on things. If you're a college kid, how can you not do that? Now, I understand the rules say that you're not supposed to do that, but I'm talking about if you're somebody, and Manziel's a horrible example of this because Manziel came up in his own words, he came in, he came from money. I mean, money wasn't really an issue for him. But when you really stop and think about it, if you're somebody that, you came from a middle-class family where, you were kind of taken care of, or even if it was from a lower income class where $30,000 could help your family for a year and stuff like that's out there. Now, of course, it's against the rules, and the people that are manipulating, because that's what they're doing. They're manipulating these college kids. And if you think about this, let's say you get, for $30,000, you get 10,000 pieces or whatever of stuff that's signed. You're going to make so much more money off that it's insane. I mean, your investment is pretty much nothing. So they're kind of manipulating these college kids too. But the fan bases that are out there, they're going to think about it. USC Insider Online says he talks about Connor Shaw and how much they appreciated Connor Shaw. There are people today that still want Connor Shaw to sign them a football. Probably a lot more when he was at South Carolina and was running up and down the field on everybody. Marcus Lattimore signing footballs and everything else. I know he used to do that for some stuff that's around here. I'm just saying that autograph thing is out there, and people are going to do it. And that's one of the things that, the name, image, and likeness thing, I don't know how that's going to work, but this is still part of college sports that is out there, and it's going to continue to happen. Brock Online says, I'd probably do it, not going to lie. I'm telling you, when I was in college, if someone said, I'll give you $30,000 to sit in this room and sign things, how many rooms can I get into in a weekend? That's what I would have done. USC Insider says, Clowney probably did. I don't know what Jadeveon Clowney did, but Jadeveon Clowney's the kind of athlete that, if I, especially after his freshman year, he came in and did such good things, or his sophomore year was probably his best year with the Gamecocks. He's coming back for his junior year. That summer in between his sophomore and his junior year, he's the kind of athlete, player, whatever, that people would want something signed by him. But I just thought that was interesting, and how one guy gave him $3,000 for 10,000 autographs, and the guy that was in there helping him, line up things to sign, came to him and said, man, you're getting screwed over. This guy will give you 30 grand. So he made 33 grand in probably a weekend just to sign autographs. I've never been a person that's big on autographs. I remember Joe Montana came into the studio one day, and I was happy to get a Joe Montana signed football. I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. And then, I think there's been a couple other people that I've been like, wow, that would be kind of neat. But there are people that absolutely love the autographs, and that's just something that's out there. So interesting stuff there from Johnny Manziel, admitting that he was paid, or he got paid for his autograph when he was in college. Remember AJ Green, of course, he was suspended for a little bit because of some autograph stuff, I think it was. It makes you wonder who else is out there and can possibly is possibly getting some money for their signature. So never been an autograph guy, but I tell you what, that's an industry that's out there that is silly to say the least. All right, we'll take a quick break and we come back. I got to talk about the USFL. That's getting back in there. Do we want a spring football league? Think about it, because I think the XFL, if we didn't have the COVID, then I think the XFL would have lasted. Alan Online says Todd Gurley got 4 games for less than $1,000 in autographs. I don't believe that Todd Gurley was doing for less than $1,000. Let's just be honest. They probably put it up as less than $1,000, but it was probably a heck of a lot more than that. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you here on the Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Todd Gurley was such a star, man. He was getting more than $1,000. I'm sorry. I just believe that. He was getting paid. I think Clowney got money. I wouldn't surprise me if Stephon Gilmore got some money here for South Carolina. As far as Clemson players go, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Deshaun Watson got some money. Just saying. These people that go after autographs, though, man, they are hardcore. They are hardcore, man. Is there an autograph that you would get that crazy about? I'd like a Chipper Jones signed baseball. I've got a Joe Montana signed football. When he came in studio here years ago, but I don't know if there's an autograph that I would go that crazy over. A Chipper Jones baseball would probably be right up there with it. A Hank Aaron baseball would have been definitely with it. I got to get my friend Dick. His name is Dick. Dick Addy has a Braves baseball bat that he started getting signed in the late 60s. And it has like so many Braves on it, like John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, all these guys. Chipper Jones, Hank Aaron, Phil Niekro. It is really, really cool. I got to bring that in and we'll take some pictures of it. So, yeah, that'll be neat. I want to take some pictures of that. I'm trying. He doesn't have any family, so, and Dick's getting up there in age. I always goof with him that, I should be your son, Dick. I'll take care of that bat for you, sir. Because I would. That bat would be, he's got it in it's like in a plastic case, and it looks just really good. So neat, man. Just so neat. But I think the only autograph that I would lose my gizzards for would probably be a Chipper Jones baseball. Connor Shaw signed football. That's pretty cool. I've got in my office, I've got a Dabo Sweeney photograph and then a Brad Brownell photograph. I've got a Deshaun Watson football that someone gave me. I don't know. I got some stuff like that. That's kind of neat. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. I tell you what, we had an icon in coaching leave the ranks today, or he's going to leave the ranks at the end of the year. I got a little bit of comments here from Coach K and why he's leaving the Duke program.
Great people has made me, Mickey, my family so much better. You might ask, why are you doing this right now? Look, this is not about health. Mickey and I, whether we look at what she does, whether I look healthy, I am. It's not about COVID or saying that year was so bad. It's not about that. It's certainly not about what's going on with college basketball, where, boy, the game's changing. All right, I've been in it for 46 years. You mean the game's never changed? In the progression of the game, we have always had to adapt to the changes in culture, the changes in rules, the changes in the world. We're going through one right now. That's not the reason. Those aren't the reasons. Those would be bad reasons, especially the health one. The reason we're doing this is because Mickey and I have decided the journey's going to be over in a year. And we're going to go after it as hard as we possibly can. And then we'll be a part of Duke's continuing journey, like President Price said, for as long as we're around. For as long as we're
There you go. Some comments from Coach Mike Schiszewski, a guy that he won 5 national titles, 12 Final Four appearances. Turning the program over to John Shire, one of his former players. Who wants that job? Who wants to fill in and try to fill the shoes of Coach Mike Schiszewski? Oof. No one wants that. Got to pay respect to the man, though. I think that he mentioned it's not health and it's not the way the game is changing. I'm not buying that. I think that players don't listen to coaches. I think that players almost have to be coddled now. I think he is a disciple of Bobby Knight. He may not be throwing chairs across the floor, but he's still a grizzled coach. You know, we're going to do things my way. I'm the captain of the ship. That's the way we're going to go. I think that's something that is definitely there. But I also think the fact that it came out that Zion Williamson was getting paid $4,000 a month by boosters from Adidas and everything else to go to Duke. And people don't want to talk about that because everybody wants to say, oh, wow, Coach K did this and Coach K did that. He's responsible for the program. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, it doesn't happen everywhere else, because it happens everywhere else. Everywhere else. But when you have guys that are like a Zion Williamson, that they come in and, you know, I covered Zion when he was here playing in his only NCAA tournament here in Columbia. They beat Taco Fall and UCF and those guys. He was followed around like he was the absolute biggest star ever, and he's in college. You know? But think about the Duke brand and everything else and how much money Duke made off of Zion Williamson. So there's money there. And I think that in the end, I don't know if Coach K in his 70s wanted to deal with that, to be completely honest with you. It's easy to say I'm in my 70s and I want to move on. We'll see how that works out for Duke. And, of course, Coach Shire up there, who has to convince people to come play for him. Let's see if he gets the same recruits that Mike Schiszewski got. I don't know how that's going to work. We'll find out. The ACC is going to be completely different here in the next couple of seasons, because there will be no Roy Williams. There will be no Mike Krzyzewski. Jim Boeheim did come out today, though, and gave props to his the coach of Coach K. They both work on and coach for Team USA, and basically put Coach K over, but said, "Yeah, I'm not retiring." Jim Boeheim, they're going to have to roll him off the court. He's just one of those guys. It's just not going to happen. But two of the standards in the ACC as far as basketball goes are retiring, with Coach Williams and then Coach Krzyzewski after this season. So the farewell tour begins for Coach K. Will they make the tournament? We'll find out. They should have a pretty good team. How far will they go in the tournament? All right, a couple more things before we get out of here. The USFL is relaunching in the spring of 2022 with at least 8 teams. Back when they were doing their thing, they had Reggie White, Herschel Walker, Steve Young. Jim Kelly, former President Trump, was an owner of a team. Now they're going to come back and they're going to try to do the spring league, sort of like what the XFL was doing. And I thought the XFL was going to work. COVID ended up screwing it over. This league is going to be, it's going to have a TV backing from Fox Sports. So next spring, we're going to have a ton of CFL games with 8 teams out there trying to entertain you with some football. I think a spring league will work if it sticks. There's always room for football out there. All right, finally, you driving around right now, we talked about this earlier, you can be part of America's team today. Support the Phoenix Suns tonight. If you are someone that agrees that the NBA sucks right now because we got a bunch of guys that are playing pickup basketball and decide they all want to play together, and hey, you know what? We're going to go to the biggest market in the world. We're going to go to New York, or we're going to go to LA, and we're going to try to ruin basketball by having all of the best players get together. We used to have the San Antonio Spurs because they were a team that were built from within, and they weren't bought by a bunch of millionaires sitting around thinking, I'd like to have that guy as my 2 guard and that guy as my center. And they'll play together. If you don't like that kind of basketball, if you don't like the whiners and criers from teams like the LA Lakers, who oh, well, we're in LA and we should have the absolute best players ever. No, you shouldn't. Teams should be built. That's the way that it should be. The Phoenix Suns are a team that were pretty much built from within. They drafted Devin Booker. They drafted their center, Ayton. And they didn't get a bunch of all-stars and put them together and make it like a souped-up pickup league. You, tonight, should be rooting for the Phoenix Suns. Now, there are folks that are watching in my chat room that talk about the Atlanta Hawks. Yeah, root for them in the East. Let's hope they knock out the Nets with all the way they put their team together. I want a Hawks-Suns finals. That's what I want. With LeBron James and all those other people, I have to have players to play with me. Yeah, sitting at home watching. That's what I want. You should be rooting for that as well. The first step is tonight. Lakers are a 3-point favorite. Las Vegas likes them there. I don't know if Anthony Davis is going to play or not. Charles Barkley calls him street clothes Davis because he's always hurt. He has an opportunity tonight to, the Suns do, to put the filthy, nasty, disgusting Lakers on the shelf. So root for America's team tonight as the Suns can put them out. 10:30 is tip-off there. Might want to watch Damian Lillard too because he might drop 60 tonight on Denver. He might. So some good basketball tonight. Lawton Swan is a wonderful human being.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
He is a Lakers fan, though, which proves that we all have faults. Lawton Swan is not welcome at my house right now because he's a Lakers fan. He knows that. Now, he knows that I do love him to death. You should listen to his show, Clumps and Sports Talk. But until my Suns put out the Lakers, he is the enemy. That's how serious I take the playoffs right now. All right, Lawton Swan, Clumps and Sports Talk is next. I'm Rob Sanders. Podcast is up at 5 o'clock. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good as I tweet angrily tonight as the Sun look to put out the Lakers. More tomorrow on the Rundown. All right, you guys rock over there, man. Thank you guys for watching the show. Remember, America's team tonight, the Phoenix Suns. No one likes the Lakers. To hell with them. See you guys.